Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Retrospection section. Today we will continue reviewing the writers. No, it's not over yet, and yes, we know your ears are bleeding. So sit back, relax, and cringe with us. The single good line in this monstrosity. Good thing I have boots on so that I can quake in them, Evan said sarcastically. Oh, here's another Deus Ex plan. Jeffy betrays them. Were you a writer this whole time? Evan asked. Yeah, you got a problem with that, Evan, Jeffy spat back. Actually, he does, said Corinne, coming in the side and whacking Jeffy with a rusty old pan she must have found lying on the ground. Deus Ex pan! So they decide to go back to the city, and they are like, okay, we gotta assemble our army. So they go to the places with the highest concentrations of people. One of them goes to a hotel, one of them goes to a plaza, one of them goes to the dorms. Here's the plaza, Wenda said. Yup, Ray replied as he went around tapping people's shoulders. Most of them were hobos. Listen, people, Wenda said. All the hobos looked up at her. Have you ever heard of the writers? Of course they all had. Everyone in the city had. But they're supposed to be top secret!
But the next line is even better. Corinne walked up to the massive hotel. She pushed open the twirling door and stepped inside. People gasped, and some whispered, "It's a writer!"
Please kill me.
But none of them knew Jeffy was a writer.
I'm dead. Corinne went back to the meeting spot first with her army of confused-looking hotel guests. Evan and Cedar arrived next with their troop of sleepy dorm kids. And finally, Wenda and Ray came back with their Hobo Posse. What is it with me and hobos?
That's my new band name, Hobo Posse.
Hobo Posse. Corinne gets kidnapped by people from this place called the Writer Mistake Camp. So it's like a concentration camp where all these writers that were anomalies get sent to. I'm gonna skip this intro, but this girl Kiela is like, what did you do? And Corinne's like, I don't really want to talk about it. But some stupid bozo guy tried to kill me, Corinne said dramatically. And do you know what? What, said Kiela eagerly. He was sent by my own mother, Corinne finished with a smug grin. She's like, I don't want to talk about it. And then she's like
vague posting, dude.
Okay, this whole, concept. They get to there, and there's one long bed in the center of this big warehouse. There's one long bed in the center that stretched from one end of the 200-foot-long building to the other. And two more, one on each side of the building. Everyone sleeps side by side here. Why the fuck are there beds if writers don't sleep? So she meets this girl named Adriana. Turns out that they find this random dude in the forest. Oh, who is he? Oh my gosh, he's a writer.
Of course
he's wearing city city clothes. What the heck? And Corinne's like, oh shit, it's Evan. Except he's not wearing city clothes because he's not wearing any fucking shirt.
Murder.
Judith, no. Okay, so they go into the warehouse where they've stored Evan's dead body.
Has it been 3 days since he was killed?
Corinne, Kali said. How did you know Corinne's name? Another mind reader. Oh yeah, Adriana can read minds.
Who can't read minds?
What? Corinne sobbed. Are you hurt? Corinne sat up. You have no idea. This is our favorite line.
I have this written on a bookmark.
Corinne looked up at the stars, the same stars she had seen every night of her life for the past 2 weeks she had been in the wild.
Every night of her life for the past 2 weeks. It's because she didn't really start to live until she met Evan.
That's true. They show up at the Writer Mistake Camp. Holy moly, Corinne exclaimed in a whisper, observing the blonde-haired girl that was 13 and a half. Okay, remember how she's 13 and a half? And Corinne is 15? Amber Agostini, is that you? What? The girl... what? Whispered the girl in the bed, opening her pale blue eyes. Who are you? She's British. Don't you remember writer headquarters? 11 years ago? Gosh, it's been forever. Oh my gosh, said the girl. You're Corinne. Of course I remember you. Hey, do you still have that thing we stole? Even though I was only 6 months old when we met? She didn't actually say that.
Also,
wow.
I love Amber said in her British accent.
So how has England been? I mean, you and I have been living in different writer headquarters for how long? 12 years? You gotta have something to tell me, Corinne said. You know, it's so boring without you there, and the co-master writer makes us eat cucumber sandwiches for every meal. They are so disgusting. But anyway, what are you doing here? Amber asked with interest. But after that, Corinne kept her eyes down. She was getting really bored of all these meeting new people thingies. So am I. So they meet this kid named Otto. Fine then, Otto said, taken aback by Corinne's superior air. Okay. Wait a minute, how did you know my name when you first came in here? Isn't it obvious, Otto said, staring at Corinne with his huge eyes. You're my sister. And then this fucking edgy conversation. That is completely impossible, Corinne said with a bitter laugh. Why? Otto asked, still staring at Corinne. Because I never even had a brother. I've been at the writer headquarters for my whole life. There was only 2 years I wasn't there. So you weren't there for your whole life. And for the duration of those first years, I was taken away from my mother, who was the master writer, put in an orphanage where they would happily not give you anything to eat. They found out you had pooped in your diaper, or they would just as gleefully give you away to some drunk dude if only they could be rid of you. Only about 1 in 5 babies were saved, if you could even call it that, by the master writer, who apparently didn't have the heart to let me die in the orphanage, and who only showed up to take me away 4 days before I would have died. That's oddly specific. And if there's one thing I remember about being taken away by the master writer, it would be this. There was only 2 kids taken away from that orphanage that day, and they were both girls. Shut up or you'll lose it, Corinne, Amber said, putting her hand on Corinne's shoulder. Knowing Corinne, she knew what she could do if she wanted to. You haven't seen me really lose it, Otto, Corinne said. You haven't seen me really lose it, Otto, Corinne said through clenched teeth. And you should probably pray that you never actually do.
Okay.
Okay, cannibalism.
Yeah!
No, huh? Evan said, recognizing Corinne's mood as go away or I'll eat you. Every sinking time that we come up with a plan, somebody I detest has to come into the picture. Sorry, Corinne, Amber apologized. Don't say you're sorry, Evan whispered, eyeing Corinne carefully. Corinne'll go mad. What the fuck? Too late, Amber said, pointing at Corinne, who was leaping over the electric fence, which was 10 feet high, and swinging off through the trees.
Is this Attack on Titan?
Yes. Where are you going, Corinne? Evan yelled after her. I'm going to get your army, Corinne shouted. Stay here, I'll be right back. Get Otto to make that flare. Finally, Corinne disappeared into the trees, and Amber and Evan walked back to their dorms. Scene break. It was midnight before Corinne reached the army. The only people still up were the hobos. Corinne went up to them and said, help me wake everyone up. This is an emergency. Wake up, shouted the hobos. Get out of bed, you ingrates, yelled Corinne.
So she didn't need help.
No. If that doesn't wake anyone up, they're all knocked out, Corinne said to herself. Luckily, everyone woke up, and Wenda, Ray, and Cedar came running up to give Corinne a hug. What? Oh my gosh, Corinne, Wenda said. We were just going in the direction of the writer headquarters, and all of a sudden you were gone, and Evan was gone. Oh, I was so worried. It's okay, Wenda, Corinne confirmed, but we need to get everyone out of here. Evan's expecting me by morning, so I'm going to have to turn you all into writers. Why?
Why?
Why? So they can go faster, I guess? What, you mean it? Cedar asked. I almost said Cinder. Yup, I mean it. Corinne closed her eyes. Alright, I need everyone to get as close as you can, except the hobos because they smell.
That's so rude!
No offense, guys. Everyone bunched together in a crowd, okay? I've never done anything like this, so just hang in there and don't move. After everyone was in a huge mass of people, except the hobos, who Corinne was going to do later, Corinne rubbed her hands together and began.
She's so mean.
I hate Corinne so much. Anyway, so Wenda's like, I don't want to be a writer because I hate being mean. So you see what I mean, Corinne asked Wenda? You aren't fit to be the leader because you can't make any mean comments. When you're human, that's good, but when you're a writer, well, it's just not right. Well, said a familiar voice. I see you have put together quite an army. Who are you? Corinne asked, looking around. I'd expect more from you, Corinne, came Jeffy's voice as he stepped out from behind one of the writer-humans. Jeffy, Evan exclaimed, you lying, low, backstabbing jerk. Corinne held it back.
Backstabbing, sneaky two-faced crook.
Corinne held him back. I'm gonna kill him, Evan said. Don't you dare, Corinne said seriously. Why? Why is she trying to stop him? He's evil. Anyway, Evan seemed
she wants to do it.
Right. He gets killed in book 2, actually, I think. But then he comes back to life in book 3. Evan seemed to calm down, but still looked furious. Famous last words, Jeffy commented, glancing at the writer-humans. They charged forward and attacked Corinne, who pulled a knife out of her boot and stabbed them one by one. When it was all done, Corinne said, it just skips the fight. When it was all done, Corinne said, Master Writer really needs to improve on these things first because they're butt ugly. Second, because they suck at fighting. And lastly, because they're stupid enough to follow you. At this, Corinne leapt into a nearby tree and disappeared to Jeffy, but completely visible to the army. Corinne gave a signal, and the entire army surged forward, and the people in the front got Jeffy in a stranglehold. Corinne sprang from the tree and held Jeffy down while Wenda took out some rope from her backpack and tied Jeffy up. He struggled against their grip, but they prevailed, but not without some trouble, as Jeffy slipped out of their grasp and began comically hopping through the forest. After 15 minutes of chasing him to and fro...
15 minutes! They have superpowers!
Evan caught him and dragged him back to the rest of the army. One of the hobos slung him over his shoulder and commenced walking with determination in the opposite direction of the writer headquarters. Evan had to run after him and bring the hobo back.
I'm really concerned.
Me too. So they meet this girl who invented the Supreme Writers, although I don't know why, and she's just kind of dead in the forest because that's normal. Okay, fun fact about young me, everybody pops out of a bush at some point. And there's also an inordinate number of flying trees. Corinne, why don't you just bring her back to life like you did with me, Evan said, ducking a flying tree that zoomed over their heads, courtesy of the monster. Oh, there's another monster. So then they get into an argument because Casey's like, I invented Supreme Riders. Corinne is my property. I don't belong to anyone, Corinne said menacingly, and Casey's indignant face wavered for a moment, then came back. I mean, you're older than you anyway, Casey claimed like a little kid. What difference does that make? You're acting younger than I am, Corinne pointed out. At least my boyfriend doesn't look like a monkey, Casey yelled.
Oh my god.
He's white. I don't...
Okay, I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Take that back. Evan looked uncertainly from Casey to Corinne, wondering what they would do. He's not insulted. He's like, it's fine. No, Casey retorted. At this, Corinne launched herself at Casey and would have reached her, but Evan stopped Corinne in mid-leap and pinned her to the ground. Ooh, poor little baby Corinne needs a timeout, Casey said, hands on her hips. I'd shut up if you don't want to get massacred, Evan said, straining to hold down Corinne. You shut up, Casey said. No, you shut up. You. No, you. I have a great idea, Corinne said, pushing Evan away from her and getting up. How about you both shut up and we all go and help those poor people kill that giant sloth? What? Casey and Evan glanced at each other and then nodded at Corinne. Then together they all ran into the melee. Observing the monster carefully while also trying not to get killed, Amber figured out that this thing is a robot and should be shut down in a civilized and proper manner, which was fine with Corinne because pretty much everyone in the army was either on the ground nursing some kind of injury or hiding behind a tree.
When did this giant sloth robot come in? Did we skip that part?
Yeah, it was before the part that I had highlighted.
Okay.
At this point, always assume there's some random monster about to pop in.
And then, you didn't even highlight this. They all looked carefully at the monster, which was having some trouble figuring out what the people were doing, until one boy pointed out that he saw an off switch.
Okay, I remember when I was little, when I was writing this, I was just imagining, like, a literal, like, light switch on the back of its head.
Corinne throws a knife at the switch, and it hits it, and the monster falls over. Corinne goes up to the boy. What's your name and how old are you? My name's Joel and I'm almost a 15. Okay, Joel, you ready to become a Supreme Rider?
What the fuck?
That's such a low bar for becoming a Supreme Rider. You saw the off switch!
Oh my god!
Your eyes work!
I had to shoehorn this joke in.
Oh no!
What's your name? Asked one of them, the oldest. Automobile. My name's Automobile. Inside the Rider headquarters, Otto looked around, taking in the sights and smells of his former home. Of course, he'd only been in it for a couple years, and when the Master Rider had discovered he hadn't had any powers, she had sentenced him to the dungeon, parentheses, there was really a dungeon under the Rider headquarters, for 4 years. There he had lived on stale bread and gutter water until he was 7, and until the Master Rider was done with all the prisoners in the dungeon at that time. Otto, a girl named Mariah, and another boy called Joey, and a girl named Aaron. The Master Rider unleashed them into the wild to try to survive or die by themselves. Otto had thought that he was the only one that had survived, but apparently Mariah had also lived because on his way to the Master Rider's office, he saw her washing floors in the cafeteria.
I love that they have so many superpowered beings that they're just like, wash the floors, I guess.
Yeah, wash the floor. Or like, you just go live in the forest. And this gem, it's the word attack, written with 2 T's. At least
1, 2, 3,
Thank
4,
you.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 A's.
19 A's and like 10 K's.
1 to 9 K's. And no C!
There's no C. So they're fighting the like riders that are still on the masturbator's side. The good thing was that the riders hadn't had much experience with fighting, so they weren't very good and were defeated within the first half hour. The battles, it's not even described, it's literally like they sucked and we beat them.
That's like the Hobbit level battle.
Oh my god. Really?
Where at the end Bilbo just gets knocked out and literally they just tell him the battle later.
They do that in Game of Thrones actually.
Do they really?
Well, in the show, I don't remember if they do it in the book, but in the show, like, they're like, Tyrion's like, yeah, let's go, and he's like leading the barbarians, and he like starts to walk, but the barbarians like trample him, he gets knocked out, and at the end they're like, we won.
Oh! They're like, our budget's low this season.
Yeah, it was like season 2. I'm sure that's why they did that. It's because they couldn't afford to do the battle, but they could afford to like do the makeup. Okay, we surrender. Come and get us, Corinne said, putting the sound of bitter defeat in her voice. She knew bitter defeat all too well. So, yeah, they mind control the riders. They're in the masturbator's office. They're about to burst in and rip you to pieces, Corinne rasped. Oh, she's dying again. Pointing to the door, which was bending each time a rider threw a computer at it. Okay, so then they beat her, and she's like, we're not gonna hurt you, Master Rider. Okay, remember that. Keep that in your mind.
Because, like, a page later, they kill her.
The master writer, who was now tied up and being dragged along by a hobo who was walking beside Corinne, looked up at Corinne. The master writer was brought out of the old apartment and put in a cage in the exact middle of the city. That passive voice, though. Then the fuse was laying around the city. In the middle of the night, the bombs that Otto had apparently anonymously been carrying around in his backpack were set off around the master writer's cage so she could watch her perfect city be destroyed. So, we're not gonna hurt you then, we're just gonna fucking blow you up. Anyway, that's the end. That's all I have.
Oh my gosh.
If you thought that was disappointing, wait until we review the other 9 books in this series. Anyway, thanks for listening to the Retrospection section, and tune in next time when we review more cringe-worthy writing, possibly by you. If you have some bad writing you'd like us to shit upon, please hop over to our blog and submit it. Until then, we'll see you next time on the Retrospection section.